I'm Ray Alagreza with IHFRA, and as you guys know, I do an ongoing series called the Last Word Podcast, and the purpose of that is to put you in front of thought leaders that you may know, may not know, may need to know better. These are people that have a distinct view that have really have chops, as they say in the musical industry, got a great track record, and help make us better. So with me today, without further ado, is the lovely and talented Cynthia Heathcoe, who I'm happy to say is this year's president of the executive committee of IHFRA, which is why we're talking to her today. So let's move right along. Cynthia, welcome. Thank you for being with me today.
Hi, thank you for having me. It is an honor. It's an honor to be here with you and to serve as IFRA president.
Well, it's going to be great. Listen, what I'd love you to do is give us a quick background on your time and tenure in the industry. You've done so much. You've got an incredibly interesting resume, so to speak. So don't be shy. Tell us how you first got in and what you've done before joining IFRA.
Well, my introduction into the furniture industry it basically happened by accident. I was on a summer break during my time at Palm Beach State College. I think I was in my 30s, and I was still trying to discover what I wanted to do with my life. I was going in for business management, and then I thought I wanted to be a therapist, and then I realized there was no money in that. So I took a summer break. I had to go to work, single mom, 6 kids, and I fell in love with the furniture industry when I got there. I worked for a little store down in Delray Beach, and I really felt a great connection with the furniture industry. And part of me would like to think, or I actually believe, it came from a place most people wouldn't expect. Years before that, I was homeless. I was a single mother living in a shelter. My youngest child was a month old at the time. And I didn't have anything to my name. I didn't have anything for me except a baby blanket that someone gave me and a throw pillow and a blanket for the living room. And those things were mine. Those were the
Mm.
only things in that apartment that belonged to me. And even the window fan, and imagine, if you will, South Florida, middle of summer, or actually December, it's still cold, it's still hot outside,
Yeah.
and the heat, but there was no air conditioning in the units. So there was a window fan that opened up to a field, and on the other side of the field was a funeral home with a crematorium. And every night as I lay my head to go to sleep, I just said, oh, that could be me over there. This is still better. This is still better. There always will be a better. And from that, I really had a strong connection with anything for the home. And I ended up going into getting out of there. I had 6 months to pull it together and get busy. And I did. I worked in a couple different fields. I worked in restaurant. I worked in beverage cart on the golf course, and I loved it, but I knew there was more for me. I knew I wanted something different. I wanted to lead, I wanted to give back. College seemed like the right spot, but in that break, I ended up at a furniture store and just felt like this is it. This is what I'm called to do, and I loved it. There was something about helping create spaces for individuals that really was just their comfort, their peace, their sanity, so to speak. And, I did work with a higher end client. They did have the money to kind of do second and third homes. So that was fun. The favorite part was playing, sometimes you paid marriage counselor and therapist at the same time while trying to close a deal, which I often.
Hmm.
But fast forward, I ended up with Bassett Furniture, and within my first year, became a Pinnacle Award winner with them. And I loved it. The company, the owner there was a franchise, saw me as an individual. He saw me as a person with a lot to give his company, and really gave me the support that I needed to grow. Eventually, I had an opportunity come up to leave and run a small retail store in the same zip code as Bassett. And it was more of a little small 4,000 square feet place. I grew it into triple the size, and then ended up taking over the space and starting my own store. and contemporary living was born. And quite honestly, I really had no plan. It all just happened. I really had no idea exactly what I was doing, except I knew I wanted to do it. And I just dove in feet first. And it worked. It worked for several years. I was very honored and very proud of what I was creating there. I worked with a lot of wonderful clients. In 2016, I was honored with the HFA Rising Star Award. I eventually joined their board. I joined their government relations action team. I've been to DC. I've advocated on behalf of the industry, and they've all been wonderful things. I even went as far as to build out a radio show, which started out as more of design and insight in the industry, and then it evolved into something a little bit more. It went from make your room happen for 30 minutes a week to make your life happen for an hour on 7:30 p.m. on FM radio.
Still that therapist in you.
Still that therapist and we was there, yes. And I had a co-host, which we did phenomenal things with that. We had a wonderful 2 years and I absolutely loved it. And I also had the ability to speak on my past, to speak on my history as a former homeless and domestic abuse survivor. And for a long time, I held that close. I didn't want to share it. And it was with Robert Bell from Retailer Now through HFA that was interviewing me as a retailer and as an HFA member. And he happened upon the story of me being once homeless. And that became the focus of the article. And that was the first time I was able to tell that truth. And it was like weight was lifted off of me, that I could actually own it and I can use it to help others. So with all of this wonderful attention that I received as an entrepreneur and through contemporary living in the radio show, I did keynote speaking and I really start to share my journey from homeless to home store in hopes of inspiring others to keep going no matter what they're facing. But in 2019, life happened. Went through divorce, closed my business. And for the first time in a long time, I paused to take a step back and to figure out what truly mattered. I, as a retailer, had to close her store and say goodbye to my baby. It was very difficult. And I ended up in the arena of working with other retailers who were at that point. They were at that crossroads. Do I close or do I stay in business? And so I started working with a company and we did consulting and there was a lot of GOBs, but I coined a phrase with this called the KIB. Let's keep them in business. Let's do high impact sales and consult with them to give them the tools so they could stay in business. No one likes to eat off of the carcass of someone's dying dreams. And when you do a GOB, it's kind of like that's how it felt. It was very painful. It was very difficult to watch as a former retailer. But the idea of going in and working with retailers and helping them stay in business, okay, what got you into this place? How did you get here? What can we do to change the behavior and not only do the sale and get you the revenue you need to stay in business, but how do we keep this from happening again? And sometimes it had to be do with buying, it had to be corporate culture, it had to be a lot of different things that hopefully they listen to. And then that evolved into doing more consulting and selling closeout merchandise. And it's kind of taken on a life of its own. I do closeouts, I do consulting still and closeouts. But one of my dearest friends and one of my best clients in Chicago loves closeout industry. And I kind of like, I'm dealing with it. I'm like, there's got to be something more. And even, I have to be honest, even in the heyday of when contemporary living was doing so well, I still had this sense of guilt about it. I'm selling $5,000 sofas. That's not your that's not your normal consumer. I want it to be a part of something that was for mainstream, for everybody. So with what I'm doing now, which is called Stacks Deals, it is, I like to call it a treasure hunt of second opportunities, closeouts, liquidations, and we carry everything. We still cater to the home. We do the bedding and the linens, but we also carry to other things within the home. And it's different. We serve a very diverse community, but we also offer great value with affordable prices. And to me, that's what's most important. is for people to come in and grab a great deal and still be able to furnish their home.
You've really touched on so many aspects of the business. How did we get lucky? How did you first come to hear about IFRA, and then why did you want to get involved?
Well, I found out about IHFRA during my time as a retailer. I served on the board of directors for HFA, and I was also part of the government relations action team. And in one of our trips to DC, one of the DC fly-ins, the IHFRA liaison, John Pinion, was present. And it was at that time that I got to know a little bit more about IHFRA. And, that was when my first real introduction came just beyond the name. And through the conversations with John, I got a great sense of the organization's mission, its members, and the way it showed up for reps. And what stuck out and with me and aligned IFRA's values were that we cared about the same thing: advocacy, community, and equipping professionals on the front lines of our industry. Even though I was still on the retail side of it, I felt a pull toward IFRA and what it represented. And that meeting planted a seed that would later grow into a full circle involvement once I shifted into a different lane within the industry. And looking back, that encounter wasn't just a networking moment. It was the beginning of finding the next chapter where I belonged in this industry.
Perfect. Now, I'm going to beg you, do not be shy when I ask you this next question. It's a two-part. How do you think IFRA may have rounded you out or helped you as a key player in the home furnishings industry? And here's where I don't want you to be shy. How do you think that you have helped IFRA take the
Um,
organization to the next level? Because you
okay.
have, but I'm not going to say it for you.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Well, I do want to start out that IFRA did give me more than just a membership. It gave me a community perspective and a deeper sense of purpose, particularly at a time in my life where I was transitioning from one aspect and one lane in the industry to another. I really felt it was a place where I belonged. It was the first space where I truly felt understood as a business owner, as a woman navigating the industry, and as a rep and a consultant. It helped me step into my leadership voice, not just within the walls of my own business, but across the industry. Through IFRA, I did find mentors who encouraged me, peers who challenged me, and opportunities that stretched me. The experience made me realize just how powerful a collective voice can be when it's focused, supported, and shared. Now, in return, I'd like to think that I've stayed engaged and put in the work. I've leaned into conversations that matter and even the difficult ones. I've helped push forward programs like Lead and Learn and Link and tried to make sure that the perspective of everyday reps is reflected in the decisions we make. I don't always have all the answers, but I care deeply. And I've always believed that consistency, collaboration, and honesty go a long way.
Well, I've been lucky to sit in a number of meetings with you, and none of us always have all the answers. But one of the things that I've always admired and respected about you is you always have the questions. You ask questions. My feeling as you step into this year as the president of the EC is you've been about planning and then accountability and follow up. Okay, we said we were going to do this. Where are we? You kind of hold people's feet to the fire in a nice way. And I think through that alone, you've made us better. Kind of leads into my next question. Now that you are EC president, what are some of the priorities? What are some of the things you want to get done this year at IFRA?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, the Link program, that to me is very important. And for those of that don't know, Link is our ambassador program where we are the liaison, influence, network, and key partnerships. And that's where we build leaders from the inside out, from within the companies that we want to connect with and really help the industry overall. The reps are very important to the industry because without the reps and their relationship with the retailers, the manufacturers don't win. So by empowering them and getting them more connected and involved, that's really important to me. I am deeply committed to growing our Lead and Learn series, not just in quantity, but just in relevance. We're bringing in speakers who can speak to real-time industry challenges. Not only how do you add more value to your order, but what does it mean to be digitally fluent as a rep? These are theoretical questions that are happening now, and we're making sure that our members are prepared. Another key priority would be membership, not just formal pairings, but fostering more organic peer-to-peer mentoring. We have a wealth of knowledge and wisdom within our membership, and I want to create more opportunities for that knowledge to be passed down, shared across different regions, and elevated in ways that strengthen our collective expertise.
Perfect. Well, as you know, this industry is anything but static. So as our industry in general continues to change and morph and go in a million different directions, what do you think IHFRA as an association needs to do to not just keep up, but kind of be at that front forward of that change? What does IHFRA need to do?
Well, staying true to its core values for sure. I mean, IHFRA champions the rep, always has and always will. Reps are the boots on the ground, the lifeblood of this industry. They're the ones walking showrooms, educating sales teams, and troubleshooting with retailers, and helping the manufacturers bring their products to life in real words. Without strong reps, industry doesn't slow down, it stalls. This is why IHFRA doesn't just support reps, we invest in them. Through education, we give them the knowledge to lead conversations with confidence, and through advocacy, we protect their values and ensure that they have a seat at every table that matters. And through community, we make sure no rep has to navigate this industry alone. When reps are equipped, informed, and connected, they don't just do their jobs better, they elevate everyone around them. The stronger the rep, the better relationship with the retailer, and those relationships are solid. The entire supply chain from factory to showroom floor runs smoother, smarter, and more profitably. That's simple, and it's that powerful.
Geez, I'm going to vote for you next election. This is good. Seriously, getting right near the end, I've got kind of one last question, and then I want to give you the final last word, which is why we call the podcast The Last Word, because I shut up and you get to talk. But what's your outlook for the industry in general over this year? I mean, there's been so much uncertainty. Tariffs, are they coming? Are they not? Is it 50%? Is it 10%? Everybody's kind of, tight, and we've got analysis paralysis. I know none of us have a crystal ball, but you've got as good a read on this industry as anybody. Where do you see us headed?
Well, I do want to tell you, it's hard for me not to remain hopeful. I mean, as 26 years ago, I graduated from a homeless shelter 26 years ago this month and moved into a residence with 6 kids, no prospects, no idea how I was going to continue. I was recovering from being beaten, battered, and abused, both mentally and emotionally. I know this is not as bleak and as dark, the times that we have ahead of us. There's always positivity around the corner. And, with that, I say that the work we do is evolving. Markets are more digital, retailers are shifting, and expectations are higher. But our industry is still built on relationship. That part hasn't changed. What has changed is the role of the rep, and I see that as a good thing. Reps today are no longer just order takers and catalog orders. They're no longer just going in, changing pictures, and updating fabrics. They are brand ambassadors, strategic consultants, and product educators, tech navigators, and even customer experience specialists, all rolled into one. The best reps are storytellers who connect the dots between the product value and the real world retail application. There's problem solvers helping retailers adapt to supply chain shifts, navigate margin pressures, and drive sell-through with smart merchandising. That's why IHFRA's future is so bright. We're leaning into the changes with open arms and fresh ideas. Through education, connection, and programs like Lead and Learn and Link, we're equipping reps to evolve, not just react. We're helping them position themselves as indispensable partners to retailers' success. Now, the goal is to go back to what was. The goal isn't to go back to what was, it's to embrace what's next. IHFRA will continue to be the voice of the rep and a source of innovation for the entire industry. We're just not keeping up, we're leading the way.
Well said. Well, I'm going to give you the last word, but of course, I've got to get my own, like, sort of last word in before you get the final last word. I
Okay.
just want to say, as somebody that's known you personally, to have gone from homeless to home run, you've been an inspiration to me, and I know a lot of other people that know you, and hopefully through this podcast, more people will get to know you. So, with that, I'm going to zip the lip, and you get the last word. What's the last word for our viewers?
Okay. Well, I didn't take a traditional path to leadership, but that's what makes this community so powerful. It welcomes all walks, all stories, all journeys. IFRA gave me the support, the voice, and the confidence to grow, not just in business, but as a leader and a human being. And now, as president, I want to extend that same invitation to others. Whether you're just starting out or decades in your career, there's a place for you here, a place to learn, to lead, and to belong. Because at IFRA, we don't just open doors, we walk through them with you together. We listen to each other, we lift one another up, and lead side by side. This isn't a club, it's a movement. It's where your experience matters, your voice is needed, and your growth is celebrated. So if you're wondering where you fit in this industry, this is it right here, right now with us. Let's make something meaningful together.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being with us. This
Thank
has
you for
been a
having me.
delight.
Thank you.
You've answered all my questions and you made me feel better about IFRA, the industry, and possibilities. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, Cynthia, we'll see you soon.
I'll see you soon.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.